Home Secretary, guests and colleagues, a warm welcome to you all, and particular thanks to you, Home Secretary, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. I know our members will appreciate the opportunity to hear you speak on what is your first speech. Taking up any great state of office is a challenge in itself, but to do so at this point in time will test your resilience, health and well-being. I hope you have the support you need to undertake the role as you face the challenges of a country that is not at one with itself, divided and fractured in a way not previously seen. I stand here as President, beaming with pride. It's nothing but a privilege to lead and represent the senior operational leaders of the service. From commanding counter-terrorism operations, policing large geographical areas, carrying the risk of covert policing or firearms operations, to carrying the heavy pressure of managing vulnerability, the list of endeavours and challenges is endless. We do so with pride, passion and determination to do our best for the public and policing. We encourage, energise and lead our teams to save lives, prevent harm and solve some of society's problems. We all recognise our responsibility not only to the public but to all members of the service and the hard-working officers and staff who make this country safe and secure every single day of the year. Something most recently seen in Derbyshire with the combined efforts of police and partners to prevent the breach of the dam to save Whaley Bridge. These acts to support and protect the public are being shown on TVs and smartphones across the country and the world, reminding the people at home of the police service available to them at the touch of a button, here to provide help when it's needed. We are the most accountable police service in the world, and that accountability has grown as we become more and more visible through the imagery displayed on traditional and social media. Sometimes the police are heroes and sometimes villains, but this can change on a daily basis according to the story and the picture. The police service operates under the public spotlight more than any other profession. Well, perhaps except politicians. Navigating a dichotomy between public respect and public condemnation. We are a service that is judged upon public confidence in what we do, and yet we find ourselves managing a balancing act between public perception, entirely dependent on images they see and the stories they hear, and public reality, based upon the treatment or experience they receive at our hands. There's no answer to this conundrum. Without free speech and information, we would not have the society that we are proud of. We do, however, have a combined responsibility as police officers, politicians, public figures and media commentators to contribute towards a public perception of reality based on the truth. A reality on which new generations can make grounded, informed life decisions as proud and confident members of society. Communicating the truth of policing is becoming ever harder as the picture becomes even more complex. Explaining why we have fewer officers, why we need specialists, why we have less community officers, why there's more knife crime. It's long and complex answers. My hope is that together we can begin to make these answers clearer by building them together. Home Secretary, the challenge ahead of you is huge. This cannot be underestimated, and we want to help. Our plea is that you bring the workforce with you on the journey towards reform, so that together we can start to tell the public story about how we are rebuilding our service. So when did this story really start to change, and what impact has it had on our rank? Since 2010, the funding reductions have steadily had greater impact. Initially, the police service was challenged to become more efficient without a significant loss of officers and staff. However, the budgetary pressures have become more and more restrictive, making it harder for forces to operate in an effective and impactful manner. As other public services suffered the same pain, we started to shrink apart. This was the start of a deeper loss to society, as the true cost of public service withdrawal became evident and new societal issues went unaddressed. For my members, we took the greatest reduction with a loss of 25% over the forthcoming years. Losing a quarter of superintendents and chief superintendents across England and Wales is not without a cost. The cost has been carried by our members. We're facing daily personal challenges at work that have not been seen by the public. Our latest resilience survey, which had a response rate of 64%, gave some stark facts. 3/4 stated the workload had increased over the previous 12 months. 3/4 stated their workload was too high. 3/4 are not satisfied with their working hours. To cope with the intensity of the pressure, we can evidence our members not taking their annual leave and not taking back their rest days. And when they do take their leave and rest days, shockingly, a third stated they used it because of the state of their health. So the build-up of pressure is having its consequences on the health and well-being of our members. 63% of you felt stress, low mood, anxiety and other difficulties with mental health and well-being in the last 12 months. We cannot underestimate the cumulative effect of this pressure that builds over years and years. Tomorrow, Ian Wiley, our Vice President, will describe how responsibilities historically taken by chief officers have started to be delegated down to our ranks. Indeed, 85% of you said they are expected to take on additional responsibilities, such as public order, senior investigation roles, and firearms responsibilities. So it should not surprise anyone, for the third year running, the satisfaction levels in pay continue to fall, when the full scale of the responsibility stacks up. So the face of our members is one of strength, determination and leadership as we work to turn strategy into success. They remain proud of their role, rank and the organisation they serve. 91% are proud to be in the police. However, our surveys betray the human cost of the funding cuts and the cumulative impact on individuals. The cost of running the service has shifted from the organisation to the individual. It's not acceptable and it's not fair. Then, like going from a famine to a feast, we get an announcement of 20,000 new officers to protect the public. I would publicly like to thank this new administration for reinvesting in policing and breathing life back into our service. In terms of officer numbers, an additional 20,000 will return us to where we were in 2010. We now share a sense of nervous optimism as we see an opportunity to ensure that those leading the service and who have been under significant pressure are appropriately and properly resourced. This, we hope, can take us to a position where spans of command and expectations can be adequately and effectively delivered without causing the unsustained impacts that I've described. To give some context, to return to the position of 2010 for the superintendent ranks, an additional 300 supers across England and Wales is required, which is the equivalent of only 1.5% of the 20,000 uplift. Our plea to you, Home Secretary, and your officials is to ensure that the Treasury bid incorporates the totality of need for the service to deliver the huge uplift, and we say on behalf of our members, a 300 uplift is fair and reasonable. The recognition of the necessity to include our rank is in the major resourcing plan is crucial, and we must come together as a service with realistic, tangible solutions for making the absolute most of this generational opportunity. The reality of the impact on superintendents is too well evidenced and too corrosive to ignore. The shrinking numbers of supers are carrying a huge weight of responsibility within forces. Adding to the ranks below them, which they must lead and manage while piling on responsibility from above, means that increasing our numbers is essential. Whilst the public would be forgiven for believing that all the additional officers will be walking their beats, we should be honest and strategic about how we rebuild our fine service. Effective organisations need good staff, supervisors, managers and senior leaders too. Our membership of senior leaders represent a group of people who will proudly lead the uplift across the service, delivering the improvements that you and our public should rightly expect. We are all acutely aware of the scale of the challenge ahead. The service loses about 6,500 officers a year as they retire or resign. Over 3 years, the recruitment will actually be nearer 40,000 than 20,000, unless we become incentivised and proactive about retention. That's a big ask for any organisation. A journalist asked me, "Can you actually achieve it?" My reply was simple: we can't afford not to. We would welcome the opportunity to discuss these concerns and provide evidence and input based on our years of experience, but for some reason, we were not invited to be part of the newly formed policing board. The Police Federation is also missing from this forum, meaning that the police workforce is not represented at all. Home Secretary, we welcome the introduction of the policing board and urge you to invite workforce representatives, something which is well within your gift. If we aim to boost our numbers on the scale suggested, there will be significant challenges ahead, of course. Recruitment, procurement of kit, equipment, states, training, the list is endless. But there will also be massive opportunities. We must seize these. We've been waiting and hoping for this for a long time. We can build a service for today and the future if we get this right and do it together. We can build a service which has sufficient resource to focus in the short term on those crimes that are impacting, such as knife crimes and vulnerability crimes. To develop all officers to improve our capability at dealing with cyber and technology. To effectively deal with the high volume crimes of fraud and deception. To build systems and processes across the public sector to have a generational impact with a focus on intervention and prevention at the forefront. To look into the future to ensure we continue to move with changing times, become more sophisticated in future-proofing, and consider the recommendations from national reviews to help improve our valuable service. With all this, there is one final area that remains fundamentally important for our wonderful police service. We must ensure that we understand our communities better. We want a service that reflects the rich and diverse places that we police. Let's take positive action to its limits and make a generational impact to become a service that all our communities can feel a part of. It's vital that we do our best to become more diverse and bring all the benefits to every rank in the service. As an association, we've really pushed for greater diversity, driving forward with mentoring and coaching of colleagues to help them with their progression and retention. Today, I'm delighted to announce that we'll be moving another step forward as we received unanimous support for a disability representative to sit on our National Executive Committee and be a part of our policy-making body for the first time. We will, as a national team and association, do everything we can to support those from underrepresented groups. We continue to ask the government about defined hours so that our members from the association with a real need are allowed to go part-time or work more flexibly without getting penalised by their pension. All stakeholders agree, but time continues to pass without progress, which disproportionately penalises our female members and those with caring responsibilities. Home Secretary, they deserve better. Our police service has withheld some significant strain over a long period of time. That's solely down to the huge efforts of everyone within the police service to do their best and to support the public. The value of public service and the willingness to do whatever is necessary to make the public safe is truly remarkable. I see it at all levels of the service, that golden thread that makes our police service the best in the world. I stand here delivering this speech in Warwickshire, an idyllic, beautiful and safe part of the world It was here that PC Andrew Deere, or Bear, as he's affectionately known, was called to attend a road traffic collision, a daily occurrence in every force area. He carried the scars of previous collisions, but scrambled under an overturned car which was leaking fuel in a life-threatening situation to keep the airway of the injured driver open until paramedics and fire officers arrived to help. For me, it wasn't just the heroic physical act, it was the courage to overcome tragedies of the past and put a member of the public before himself that makes Bear so outstanding and representative of the ethos that runs through our service, a worthy winner of the Police Bravery Awards. We see these values daily as officers face their own demons, see sights that they preferred not to, face danger that people run from, and at times pay a high price. These hero officers are constantly abused, harassed, assaulted and attacked, and increasing numbers, and facing dangers which are constantly shown on our screens, suffering as victims of their own dedication. These are the people that we need to support, and we owe them the promise of a commitment to change, support and value. Our association will be working with the Federation and Chief Officers to see what we can do to reduce the harmful impact of policing in today's society. We know the mental health of officers is a serious concern for us all. I welcome the announcement of a police covenant, not only for the potential to do more to help officers, but as a signal from the government that we are valued. The association will play a role in the development of that and other aspects which have emerged from the frontline review, but we hope the covenant can be meaningful and supportive. Finally, the importance of value of policing in our society is never more raw than following the loss of an officer acting in the line of their duty. We all felt the pain of the death of PC Andrew Harper from Thames Valley Police. It illustrates the risks of the job and the sacrifice made by an officer serving his community and responding to a burglary call. Home Secretary, this administration is starting to show more value and gratitude to officers. Where an officer dies in the execution of his or her duty, there is another symbol of value. I ask for you to seek an extension to the award of the Elizabeth Cross to those police families whose loved ones have died in the execution of their duty. It will send another message of support that I know families will truly value. As a police service and as an association, we do our very best to care for our people, our police and our public. I ask the government to care and value us and accelerate the healing process. Thank you.
Well, Chief Superintendent, thank you so much for that speech. An awful lot of ground to cover, a lot to chew over, and of course, a very sombre remarks at the end that I'm sure I could tell the whole audience wanted to echo. An awful lot for the Home Secretary there to react to. I think I could see her scribbling notes away, so I think we can be confident she will answer as many of the association's questions and pertinent points. Just want to echo yet again, please do not be afraid of asking the question. I know nobody likes to be the first questioner, but somebody's got to do it, so I'm relying on one of you to be brave enough to put your hand up first. And of course, as we heard earlier, you can use the app to put questions, and I will be monitoring those from a sedentary position on the front row. It is quite hot in here, and I think particularly those in uniform are probably suffering a little bit. So I think the Home Secretary and I are probably both equally glad that we don't have a serried rank of young cadets behind us on this stage today, because they might find it a little too warm, as others did last week. I'm sure that she will address those concerns as well as many other concerns, and as I've said, there will be a couple of questions from journalists after the speech as well. But please, ladies and gentlemen, would you give a very warm welcome to the Home Secretary, Priti Patel.
morning, everyone. Daisy, thank you for your kind introduction. And let me start by really thanking Paul and all of you from the Police Superintendents Association for inviting me here today. This is my first speech to a policing audience, and I have to say it's a real honour to be here. And for me in particular, as your Home Secretary, I'm proud to say that my job is to help all of you to do your jobs. And that hugely important job is, of course, to protect the public from the scourge of crime. Now, we're all on the same side. We want to keep families, communities, and our country safe. We want a better deal for the police and a worse deal for criminals. We want to cut crime and lawlessness, to keep evil drug gangs and vicious stabbings off our streets, to protect our country, our freedom, and our way of life. So I could not be more proud to stand side by side with you, the best police service in the world. And a police service, as you all know better than I do actually, that shows extraordinary bravery day in, day out. A police service that continues to inspire all of us through everything that you do. So I really just want to open my own remarks by thanking you all for what you do and also the challenges that you confront on a daily basis. And as your Home Secretary, I think it's quite important, in light of, in fact, Paul's remarks earlier on, to start off by saying that you have our support. Now, Paul asked me in his speech to point to a couple of factors, actually, to show that obviously we care, I care, and value our police. Now, I certainly do that, and I will elaborate on this much more through my remarks. But I think importantly, it's important to show that the wounds of the past are brought to some closure, and effectively that the police come first. And from my perspective, you are my top priority. And it's more than that as well, because as your Home Secretary, I am your public champion, I am your public voice and advocate. So I'm making it my mission to ensure that the people you serve also get right behind you. And I don't intend to stop until the whole country shares the same pride in our incredible police, because we owe you that much, because it's pretty self-evident that what you all do is far from easy. And we've seen that of late through the senseless, brutal, and mindless killing of PC Andrew Harper. That demonstrated that beyond doubt. His life was cruelly snatched away just weeks after his wedding as he responded to a call for help. He was struck down for simply doing his job. A hero sacrificing himself to help others, putting his life on the line and paying the ultimate price. I commend his bravery and send my love and condolences to his family. No parent should ever have to bury a child, and no bride should ever have to spend what would have been her honeymoon mourning the husband she planned to share her life with. No family should ever have to watch or wave a loved one off to work, worrying if they will ever come home. But of course, in policing, this is the norm. This happens far too much. And in the last year alone, there were 30,000 assaults on police officers in England and Wales, up 18%. As many in 1 in 4 serving officers were attacked. And as crime becomes more violent, the assaults are increasingly brutal, with a 27% rise in the number of officers injured. Now, many of you would have been hurt. Many of you would have seen friends and colleagues being abused, all in the line of duty. It takes extraordinary courage to keep running to the front line to face that threat day in, day out. But for you all, your sense of duty comes first. You refuse to be cowed, and I refuse to leave you exposed. We simply must do more to help those on the front line and the friends and family behind you. So the time has come to empower you all with the support and the protection you so desperately deserve and need. So as you fight the scourge on crime, I will fight to ensure that you have everything you need to do the job. Lives are on the line here. Your experience and expertise is vital to informing me in terms of what is needed on the ground and what will also make a difference. So I want to hear from you. And so far, I've had the privilege of meeting the most incredible, inspiring, highly motivated, dedicated, energetic police officers. and their professionalism in the face of adversity is quite remarkable. It has also been truly moving and humbling to meet so many of them. And at Thames Valley Police, I saw the devastating impact of the loss of a colleague and the professionalism of officers who, despite their own grief, continued in their pursuit for justice. And across the country, I've been struck by the dedication and sheer sense of duty of every officer I have met. Good people with enormous pride in serving their communities, who want to strike back against the wrongdoing and see justice served. You want to be able to do more, but on every patrol, in every control room, and here today, I have heard how frustrated you feel, how overstretched you are, and unable to use the right tools to keep our streets safe. So this is a new government, and I'm prepared to be frank. I am ashamed to say you haven't always had enough support. You have been overworked and undervalued, unable to do the job you love as well as you'd like. And that stops now. And I'm with Paul and all of you on this, and I too have seen the human cost of policing firsthand. And that is why I'm taking this once-in-a-generation opportunity to effectively reset that relationship between us, to bring the changes that you want to see in policing. And the Prime Minister is 100% with us, and he has personally pledged to give you officers everything you need to cut crime. And as your Home Secretary, I will do everything to ensure that you have the resources, the power, and the authority you need to empower you to do your jobs, to support you in the challenges you face, and also to stand by you and address the personal and human impact of the incredible work that you all do. Back in the policing profession, restoring pride in the police is long overdue, and that is exactly what I will do. And so far, we've made a start on this journey. You've told us all that we need more bobbies on the beat, so one of our first acts was to pledge 20,000 more police officers. So we're not wasting time, and we now have the central funding secured from government, and the recruitment campaign, as you all saw, was launched last week. You told us that you need more officers as well as more leaders to lead you. Now, I can't tell you exactly how many extra superintendents there will be right now, but have no doubt we will provide the frontline leaders you need to make this work. You've also told us that Stop and Search helps to tackle violent crime, so we are empowering you to do more. You've told us you need more direction from us, so I'm chairing the new National Policing Board to drive change. And you've told us to take you with us on this journey of reform. So both the Superintendents Association and the Police Federation will be invited to sit on special sessions of that board focused on the front line. Now, in 6 weeks, we've made a strong start, but I will not stop there. To reverse the years of damage, the healing process is going to take more than a sticking plaster. So in my 6 weeks as your Home Secretary, I've been humbled by those I have met, the experience that have been shared with me, and naturally the values that are very unique to the police family. And that is why I've personally accelerated the work to establish the Police Covenant. And this is a pledge to do more as a nation to help those who serve our country, and importantly, to ensure that our pride in the police pays off in practice. We need to recognise the bravery, the commitments and the sacrifices of serving and former officers. And have no doubt, I am prepared to be bold to protect you, to care and to value you. And I will not flinch from enshrining this new protection for the police in law if that is what it takes. So I can reveal today I plan to focus work on the Covenant in 3 areas where you need it the most. That's your health and well-being, your physical protection, and support for your families. Firstly, I want to ensure that you and your officers are fit and well, in mind and in body. Now, I've seen the constant risk of injury you face and the emotional pressure you are all under. The frontline review showed the dire need to boost both your physical and mental health. Now, we've already launched the National Police Wellbeing Service to improve support, but it can be a postcode lottery, and the care provided remains patchy. So I will work with the service to accelerate the creation of new standards for occupational health provision across all forces. And this will ensure that you receive the support you need when you need it, and not weeks or months later. We also need to think big. So I'm now working with the Health Secretary to urgently explore the best ways for you to access the support that you need. However much NHS staff want to help, they may not always understand just what you've been through and the type of help and support that you need. So we will learn from the Armed Forces Covenant to explore exactly how we can meet those needs. Secondly, I'm making the physical protection of officers my top priority. And of course, this means giving you the kit you need to stay safe. But also protecting officers is not just about equipment. The utterly appalling rise in the attacks shows that. We need a strong deterrent to make those thugs think twice. The Assaults on Emergency Workers Act was a start, but in its first 6 weeks, only 1 in 4 people convicted of new offences were jailed, and the average sentence was just over 2 months. Now, I know the strength of these punishments is a matter of concern to you all, and I share those concerns. This epidemic of attacks demands urgent action, so I'm now working with the Lord Chancellor to ensure that they are handled with the appropriate severity by the whole criminal justice system. Sentences must be sufficient. So together we are urging the Sentencing Council to put attacks on officers at the forefront of their review on sentencing guidelines. To cut crime, we need to strike fear into the hearts of criminals, and the courts have an important role to play in doing that. We have to work together to make sure that anyone who assaults an officer gets a sentence that truly fits the crime. Both you and the hard-working, law-abiding majority we all serve deserve to see justice done. And that means bringing the full force of the law down on those monsters who prey on our police. And of course, when it comes to the people that matter to us the most, our families, we must do more to support those torn apart when officers are hurt or killed in the line of duty. We cannot heal their heartbreak, but we can do everything in our power to support them, stand with them, and show the huge value we place on their fallen loved ones. So I'm urgently exploring what more we can do to support families and to help families when they need it the most. We will consult with police staff associations to understand what we can do to improve the care and support provided to grieving widows, husbands, partners and parents, and for the children who will grow up without a parent. I want to understand what it will take to make a difference and then have a plan to deliver for them. And Paul's suggestion of recognising their loss through the honours system is a respectful tribute to the service that has been given. And I will look further into that suggestion, because we must give every fallen officer who has given their life for us the recognition and the respect that they deserve. When an officer like PC Harper dies doing their duty, it is our duty to remember them. Police memorials and honours pay a fitting tribute, so I will investigate the existing landscape, including the UK Police Memorial and the new National Emergency Service Memorial through the Covenant, and use it to ensure that the recognition is given. And if there is anything more that we can do to mark the enormous sacrifices made by PC Harper and others like him, or to provide the comfort to their grieving families, I will not hesitate. And so as we do more to respect and value our police, I also know there is one other area where we can work together to do more to improve, and that is diversity. It is vital that the police reflect the communities that you serve. And I know this is a key priority, and I thank the Association and Paul for all your work in this area. And as we recruit the next generation of police officers, we can do more to broaden our appeal to see more talented people from every walk of life across our police forces. Irrespective of gender, race, religion, or even background, I want police officers up and down the country to know if they have the skills, determination, commitment, and ability that they can get to the top. And to make this a reality, I am pleased to announce that we are changing the law to introduce defined hours for superintendent ranks. Now, this will open the door for flexible working and help support people such as the hard-working parents amongst you who cannot always be on call 24/7. The recruitment of 20,000 new officers is also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make our forces more diverse and stronger. And I will use the National Policing Board to ensure this opportunity is not wasted. So today I've set out our plans in terms of how I intend to change our relationship with the police and make this a partnership where we work together to keep people and our communities safe. I will support you, protect you, empower you to protect the public. I will give you the ability to restore a sense of public pride in your profession that recognises the sacrifices that you make each and every day. My door is always open, so you need to tell me what you need to stop criminals in their tracks and also to deliver on our shared mission to protect the public and to keep our streets safe. Thank you.
Home Secretary, thank you both, and Paul, thank you both so much for those speeches and for the reaction that you gave in that speech to Paul's speech. I think certainly we're grateful for that. As I said, we've now got some time for questions. I'm delighted to say that you have been using the app. So I'm going to come to some questions on the app first. I'm going to call out your name if you can let me know where you are, and I'll get the microphone to you so that you can we will be taking at least 2 questions from the press, so please don't panic, those of you on the press tables. But first of all, I want to go to Chief Superintendent Neil Evans, who sent a very popular question through on the app. Is Neil lovely?
Thank you. Good morning, Home Secretary. We've heard from our President that in the cuts over recent years, the superintendent ranks have been hardest hit in terms of reduction in numbers. And I certainly see as a branch chair, and we've heard about the resilience survey in terms of the significant impact that's having on the health and well-being of colleagues up and down the country. We need more superintendents now. Now, I've heard your remarks about you can't give the exact number. So I'd go to Paul's question really about why aren't we on the National Policing Board? And can you give an assurance that we will be invited on there so that our voice is actually heard and that we have a real input into the uplift nationally, but in terms of what that means for our members?
Yeah, well, Neil, thank you very much for your question. And you've heard what I've had to say about the 20,000 and allocations. We're absolutely working through that. And I've already said to Paul that we will work together on how we work through those numbers and what that means, obviously, for superintendents too, and the increases there. In terms of the National Policing Board, you heard in my remarks, I mean, I'm absolutely open to bring in both yourselves and the Police Federation into the board to look at, obviously, all the challenges that we face on frontline policing. The board has only met once. I've only been doing this role for 6 weeks. We're moving at pace, I think, is the term that is frequently used. And as far as I'm concerned, you've heard me say already, not only is my door always open, I'm here to learn and listen from the experts and the professionals. And we can only do this together. This is a journey that we are now all on. We have to work together, support each other to deliver effectively the change that we want to see across policing in our country.
Home Secretary, can I just pick up on both of those points very briefly? On the issue of the board, we heard in your speech that you said both the Federation and the Association would be given some sort of position on the board, but it didn't sound to me like it was a permanent position on the board. It sounded like a sort of as and when necessary. Is that a fair interpretation of what you were saying?
Well, we've only met once in 6 weeks so far because there's a lot going on. So we're looking at the whole board and how it's working and how effectively that board will deliver us or help to drive the delivery of 20,000. So we need the right mixture on there, obviously. So we've got to work through that. But I'm absolutely adamant that we will have, representation from all key aspects of the policing family on the board, so that we can all, get to the right outcome effectively.
So I think that's quite a big advance that they will be on the board in some form or another.
Absolutely.
We'll have to wait and see exactly how. And on the numbers issue, because I know it's a very important issue for everybody in this room, there's been talk that perhaps the uplift that might be around the 200 mark of 200 new superintendents, but that actually, they're needed at least 300, if not more. Can you give any indication as to whether it's going to be nearer 2 or 3, or ideally more than 300?
Daisy, I can't, because I only got the money secured last week, obviously through the spending round, and so we are working through that. We know exactly. Look, it's not lost on us in terms of the numbers that are required. In policing full stop, but obviously Paul and I have had conversations already in terms of the uplift. So we've got to work together to get into the right place on this.
But you're under no doubt that they think they need 300 or more.
I've heard the numbers.
They've made that clear. Excellent. Let's go to our second question. It's from Chief Superintendent Dave Sturman. Dave, where are you? Lovely if we can get a microphone.
Thank you, Home Secretary. Thank you for the opportunity of asking the question. So I've been a superintendent now for a good while, some 13 years of my 27 years service. And throughout that time, in common with many colleagues in the room, I've given up my time voluntarily to undertake on-call duties. In my case, generally firearms and public order duties. I think the superintendent ranks are the right rank to take that responsibility with our experience and seniority. But over time, those on-call responsibilities have become more onerous and more intrusive into our private lives. The volume and tempo of on-call has increased in summary. So the association, I'm aware, has been not being chief officers for a good time now to get some form of disruption or on-call allowance paid. We're really grateful that chief officers have now agreed to pay that, but also conscious that police regulations take some time to change. Yeah. So will you give an undertaking today to ensure that those reforms go through and that actually the disruption allowance will be backdated to September of this year?
Well, thank you so much for your question and your comments, and also for your service. And I think it's pretty clear. I've heard a lot about the demands in terms of on-call, payments and the regulations that are required. The answer is absolutely yes. We're working on this now in terms of the regulations. But also there's a bit of work to do because we look for, I need to see the proposals from the MPCC and obviously the PSA so that we can facilitate this work and just get it done, basically. So this is work in progress. And in fact, we've had discussions about this already. There's a lot still that's outstanding that needs to happen before we can even put the regulations in place. But we're working on this now.
And I was very struck by what you said in your speech, very strong words, that you used the word ashamed, that the way that the police had been treated and they had been overworked and undervalued, and you said that stops now. But of course, it's easy to say it stops now, but you have to go and have the negotiations with the Treasury and so on, perhaps harder to deliver.
Well, I mean, it's a fact of life. There isn't a pool of money that I can just tap into. And we've just gone through the spending review, obviously, that was announced last week by the Chancellor. And, all credit to the Chancellor, former Home Secretary, who's worked with me and my department in terms of securing the funds for the 20,000. Let's not forget there's still an operational department that needs to be run as well within the Home Office. And so our uplift was based on everything there. But Daisy, you're right. There are many issues, regulatory issues around pay and conditions that still need looking at. And it's certainly not lost on us that through the uplift of getting 20,000 police officers recruited, we need to look at the whole package as well in terms of the support, the infrastructure, the kits, many of the points that have been touched on this morning here, but through the conversations that I've had as well. So that is real detail, but we know what we need to do to deliver, and that is our primary focus.
Okay, let's go to Superintendent Emma Richards.
Thank you. So the PSA are constantly thriving to increase our diversity in the superintendent ranks. One of those blockers is that our working hours are not defined, so there's no ability to work part-time or compressed hours. I'm really encouraged to hear that you are supportive of this change for our terms and conditions. Can you offer the reassurance that this change will be made in the near future and as it will have implications on the uplift?
Well, yes, and thank you, Emma, for your question too. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, if we want to have a successful workforce, a workforce that reflects the country in its totality, not just in terms of diversity but skills, we can't lock people out. We simply cannot lock people out at all. So, we need to do more to encourage, support people, obviously, to do what, get on basically within the career and have the support to move onwards and upwards. So, absolutely, I want to make this happen sooner rather than later. And it seems to me that it's long overdue. It is really, really long overdue. Now, I'm too new to understand the history behind this, but I know that there have been many reasons as to why this hasn't happened. But if we're going to be relevant to the communities that we want to serve, if we want to give career progression, the right kind of provide the right kind of opportunities, basically, to officers who can develop their careers and encourage others to step up as well and reach the top level that they wish to aspire to achieve as well, then we've got to make this happen sooner rather than later.
All right, I've got one more question from the app. If you do have an urgent question you want to ask, don't forget to stick your hand up and try to catch my eye. But I'm going to take another question from the app. Then we'll go to some journalists and see if we've got time for any more from the floor. The next most popular one on the app was from Detective Superintendent Paul Fotheringham. Paul. Hi.
Home Secretary, we fully understand the need for independent oversight of police officers, but we're consistently seeing cases investigated by the IOPC that are taking a considerable amount of time, some years. Officers and their families' lives are wrecked whilst their careers are put on hold, and there's a significant impact on them. Will you consider a review of the IOPC in order to improve their efficiency and effectiveness?
Thank you, Paul, for your question. The IOPC, I have already met with Michael Lockwood, actually. I think it was my first week I met with Michael. And there's no doubt, obviously, the IOPC is there, it serves a purpose and a function. I think there are a couple of things, actually, that are relevant, not just to your question, but also to the role of the IOPC, which is, we have to learn, I think we all have to learn the lessons of the past. We cannot have investigations that just go on and on and on. We need streamlined processes, we need more efficiency, we need more effectiveness, we need more accountability. But ultimately, we need swifter outcomes. We cannot have officers left in limbo. We cannot have officers having their professional careers basically suspended while investigations, inquiries take place. That does a huge disservice and an injustice to everyone in policing, I think, to the officers in particular. And also we need to look at ways in which we can support our officers through some of those really torrid experiences that they have had. So there is more to do here, there's no doubt about that, but my focus is absolutely on the effectiveness, the efficiency, the transparency and the accountability through process. I think that's really, really important. It's taken too long. I just don't think it serves the purpose in the way in which it has done, and by that I mean the nature of the inquiries that have taken too much time. And of course the IOPC, being relatively new, needs to obviously be very mindful of changing practices and what's required of them.
Secretary, what's your understanding of why these investigations take so long? Because presumably once you work out why they take so long, you can fix it and make them hurry up.
Well, from the conversations and discussions I've had, naturally everything is done on a case-by-case basis, and that takes time within its, in terms of getting, like policing, evidence, information, everything in terms of looking at a full case, the officers that were involved. But the reality is, I take the view, look, as officers, serving officers that, are there in terms of the frontline public duty, wanting to see justice done through policing, crime, the cases that they undertake. Police officers have a deadline effectively put upon them to get their jobs done. We must have exactly the same approach when it comes to the IOPC. Too many cases have been going on for too long, and a lot of them are historic as well, which takes even longer in terms of getting evidence and information. So, this is a process that absolutely has to be looked at.
All right, time to squeeze in a couple of questions from my friends in the press. I think Lizzie Dearden from The Independent is near the back somewhere. I don't know if we can get a microphone to Lizzie. And then we'll also get a microphone to Danny Shaw from the BBC, please. Whoever's got the microphone now might as well kick us off.
It's Lizzie, hi. There was widespread condemnation from senior officers, including the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire, when student police officers were used as a background for a political speech by the Prime Minister on Thursday. How would you respond to accusations that your government is politicising the police?
Well, Izzy, thank you. First of all, I was there and we were launching our recruitment campaign for 20,000 new officers, and I think it's fair to say that recruitment campaign has also been welcomed across policing. And we were there not just looking at new recruits, we were looking at the training programs that recruits were going through, and for both the PM and myself, it was a great opportunity to actually thank many of the officers that were there for their work and everything that they were doing. So, you know, that was a long planned visit. It was a campaign that had been well trailed in the fact that it was there we were launching our campaign. And for us, the Prime Minister and myself, it was a great opportunity to see the work firsthand in terms of what was going on.
But it did rather backfire with the coverage afterwards, I think it's fair to say, because obviously this poor female cadet was fainting from the heat. She'd been kept, apparently, you know, the story went that they'd been kept waiting for an hour because Boris Johnson was speaking to his brother about the fact his brother was leaving government. It didn't look good, did it?
Well, I mean, what I'd say is that, I mean, I was there, I travelled with the Prime Minister, I came up with him on Thursday last week. We were out in the cold, it was a bit chilly, and it is difficult. I mean, it is difficult to stand for a period of time. We were running late, there's no doubt about that. But the fact of the matter is, you know, the poor recruit that, you know, fainted, we did speak to her, both the Prime Minister and I did speak to her afterwards. And, you know, I'm afraid, you know, these things, you know, do happen.
But to Lizzie's wider point that it looked like the politicisation.
Well, I don't accept that, because we were launching our campaign. We were launching the recruitment of the police campaign, and that had all been pre-planned, pre-organised, and, you know, there wasn't criticism of that while we were developing that. I think that's important to say. And officers and the police force knew that we were going to a policing venue to announce our campaign, and I think that was the right thing to do.
All right, Danny Shaw.
Home Secretary, could I ask you about your comments about stronger sentences for people who attack police officers? Do you have in mind the death penalty for people who are convicted of murdering a police officer? Is that something you would support? And can you take this opportunity now to set on the record what your views are about capital punishment, given the controversial history of your remarks in the past?
Thank you, Danny. Well, I can, and I can say that in the past I haven't been an advocate of capital punishment, so much of that has been taken out of context. And you've heard me say in my speech today that I'm working with the Lord Chancellor to review sentencing guidelines, and that is the right thing to do when it comes to looking at appropriate sentencing for assaults on police officers. And I think the public would also support that and agree with the fact that we need to have stronger sentences, and sentences that fit the crime of assaults on police officers. And we've seen far too often, far too frequently, the severity of the types of awful attacks on officers, and that has to stop.
I'm going to squeeze one quickie in because I can see that on the app it's getting a lot of likes, so totally different subject, apologies. Danny, this is about police pensions. From Chief Superintendent Matt Horn, he says, recent years, superintending ranks have been punished by the changes to the annual allowance tax laws and how they interact with police pensions. The last few years, our members have received huge tax bills. Can you tell us how you'd propose to resolve this issue for superintending ranks?
Sure. Well, this has become an issue across the public sector. We've seen this in other aspects in the NHS as well, and it is an issue. And I'm going to say this as someone that believes in, you know, it's the right thing to do is to save for your pension, make contributions. So we are now working with the Police Pension Scheme Advisory Board to understand the impact of pensions tax rules on recruitment, retention, senior police officers, because clearly, this will be another Treasury conversation, of course, clearly we've got to do more in this area to bring about change.
Now, I fear that my life will be in danger if I keep the Home Secretary up on this stage anymore. I'll be rugby tackled by some of her press officers, I expect, who are fast approaching. That is my cue to let her go and let her get back to the Home Office. We're so grateful to you for making this speech, very important speech, here with us today, and of course to our President as well. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please reconvene at 10 minutes past 12, but please show the Home Secretary your appreciation. Thank you.